everyone. I'm so excited because today we are going to be doing the first of a new series I'm going to be doing every once in a while on my channel. And as you guys know, I am a huge fan of the Nancy Drew books, and I have a new Nancy Drew book in my collection. I've actually had it for probably almost 6 months now, and I have wanted to do some videos including this, and it is of course the Nancy Drew Cookbook. Now, if you guys are not familiar with this cookbook, this one actually came out in the 70s, I think, like, I don't know, 78, 73, something like that. And this is a republished version of it that was published in like 2005, I think. And I came across it on Amazon, wanted to purchase it, of course, because I am such a big Nancy Drew fan. And let me just say that this is a very interesting cookbook. And there are a lot of recipes in here inspired by the Nancy Drew books. And I wanted to start this as like a little sub-series on my channel. I'm not going to be doing these a whole lot often, but maybe like once a month I will pick a recipe from this book to try out with you guys. I was thinking of going in order of the Nancy Drew books, but I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to pop around or not. We will see. But today we are going to be doing a recipe from this book. So we're going to go through all the ingredients, everything you need, and all the steps to create the very first recipe we're going to be doing today. So in honor of the first Nancy Drew book, The Secret of the Old Clock, so this recipe is called the Old Clock Ice Cream Pie. I will be putting the recipe on screen here so you guys can follow along if you would like to also try making this recipe for yourself. Without further ado, let's get started with making the Old Clock Ice Cream Pie. Okay guys, so starting off with this very first recipe, here is what it calls for. 1 quart of vanilla ice cream. Now I am going to be making a smaller sized down version of this. When I was procuring my ingredients, I already had vanilla ice cream, but I didn't check how much I had. And unfortunately, I do not have a full quart, so we're gonna be downsizing just a little bit. Next, the recipe calls for a 1/2 cup of frozen strawberries or raspberries. So I've got just about a 1/4 cup since I am going to be downsizing this recipe. And I went ahead and chopped mine up. It didn't say to do that, but if I'm gonna have fruit in my ice cream, I prefer it to be a little bit more in bits and pieces rather than full strawberries or raspberries. So I went ahead and chopped mine up a bit. And the last ingredient it calls for, the full recipe says 24 cream-filled chocolate cookies. I have gone with 12 cookies. We will see if I need a few more or not, but that is what I'm going with for today. And one ingredient that is not mentioned in the recipe list but is later mentioned are some sprinkles. So the recipe calls for chocolate jimmies. I unfortunately do not have any, so rainbow jimmies will have to do. Alright, so the first step of the recipe says to let the ice cream and frozen berries soften and then mix them together. So for sake of easiness, I am going to just transfer my ice cream over here, a little on the extra soft side, so I might need to throw this back in the freezer in a little bit. So as you can see, I did not have nearly as much ice cream as I probably would have needed for the full recipe, but that's okay. I am now going to mix in my chopped up raspberries. Again, it didn't say to chop them up, but I just know I probably wouldn't like biting into a full raspberry. So we're just gonna mix this through. And since my ice cream is definitely more on the melty side, I'm gonna pop this back in the freezer while we do the next step. The next step calls to heat the oven to 350 degrees. So I've got that going. Next up, we need to mash the cookies with a rolling pin or crush them in a blender until very fine. I'm gonna go with the rolling pin method just because I don't really feel like dirtying up my blender. And I have 12 Oreo cookies here. I'm going to place these in a bag just to kind of minimize some mess. All right, and using my little rolling pin, I'm gonna start crunching these up. Alright, so I have my cookies all smashed as fine as I could get them, so now we're going to move on to the next step. So the next step says to grease a pie plate and line with the crumbs. So since I didn't have enough ice cream to do the full recipe, this was the closest I could find to an oven-safe pie type dish. So it's not exactly a true pie dish, but it is a little bit more of like a shallow skillet type of ceramic plate. So we're going to use this today. So first I'm going to grease this. And I'm just going to be using Pam coconut oil to grease this. All right, now that that is greased with clean hands, I'm going to press the crumbs into the plate. if I had done this in the blender, they probably would have come out a little bit more of a finer coarseness to it, but this is working out okay. It's just probably not going to hold together as well if I had done it in the blender where it really mixes together. So I found that using a flat end of a cup that is clean is a really good tool to really press this down in there and compact it all together so it holds together a lot better than just pressing with the fingers. All right, and I think that turned out pretty good. I'm going to clean this up just a little bit so it looks a little bit nicer. All right, and I did have a little bit of leftover cookies, so I probably could have done about, let's see, maybe about 9 cookies or 8 cookies would have done good for this size of my dish, but you know, it's just going to depend on what size dish you have. All right, so the next step says to bake this pie shell for 8 minutes in the oven at 350 degrees. I'm probably going to underdo that just a little bit because this is a bit smaller. I'm going to start at 4 minutes and probably take it out about 6. All right, I have taken it out of the oven. I think about 6 minutes was perfect for this, so now we just need to let this cool. Okay guys, so we are finally on to the second to last step. So now that my pie crust has completely cooled, I have pulled my ice cream back out of the fridge. It did kind of refreeze just a little bit, but you know how like ice cream kind of always goes a little weird when it melts and refreezes, but that's not a big deal. So the next step says to fill the pie shell with the ice cream mixture, then we're gonna put it back in the freezer and let it chill thoroughly. So we are going to go ahead and start spooning this in. I think I did make my crust layer just a little bit on the thick side, and I probably won't get to use all of this ice cream mixture in here, but that is okay. So I'm just going to use like a little offset little knife to kind of spread this out and fill out the pie crust. It does say that you just put it in the freezer and chill thoroughly, but there is a little blurb at the bottom that says Nancy's idea on the pie: form the face of a clock with chocolate jimmies or chocolate bits. Set the hands at the hour you plan to serve the dessert. So it's kind of like a little bonus step. If you want to do it, you can. So I'm gonna go ahead and do it because I feel like that's what makes this the old clock ice cream pie. Because if I don't do it, I mean, there's not much to it. And again, it did say to use chocolate jimmies. I don't have any, so this might look a little silly, but unfortunately, it's what I got. So I think I'm gonna kind of just do like little sprinkles around the outside, because trying to like really make it all the different hours of the clock, I think it's going to be a little bit hard. So I just want to do little sprinkles on the outside here, just kind of like the rim of the clock maybe. This would probably look a lot better if I did have the chocolate jimmies, but oh well, we work with what we got. Okay, so now it says to place the hands like at the time you want to serve it. I'm just gonna kind of do like a, not really gonna follow that, but we're just gonna kind of do like our little hands here. This is kind of harder than I thought it would be to try to make like a little straight line, but we'll do a little something like this. Do like a little 4 o'clock looking type of thing. Okay, so that's how it looks with the little sprinkles on it. I totally think it would have looked better and stood out more against the color of the ice cream if they were chocolate, but now we are just going to put this in the freezer and let it set for a few hours, and we will come back and do our taste test. All right, guys, it's been about 2 hours in the freezer. I think it probably could go a little bit longer, but I think it's just fine. So we're gonna go ahead and cut into this and see what it's like. All right, I don't know how well this is gonna turn out, but we're gonna see. I'm gonna kind of make like a little cut into here. Now the first piece is always the ugliest because it's hard to get out of here. Oh no, you guys, oh no. The crumbly cookie crust is, doesn't really seem like it wants to hold together too well. Oh no, you guys, oh no. So you can see we're missing a little bit of our cake here. All right, that is a little bit unfortunate that our cookie crumb crust didn't hold together very well. Let's see if we can cut one more slice and see if we can get it to come out a little bit better. You know, sometimes the first cut's always the worst when it comes to pies, and you just kind of got to mess up that first piece. So let's see if we can get a slightly cleaner, better piece the second cut, or if that's just how it's gonna be. Oh my gosh, you guys. The ice cream has separated from the cake. Oh my gosh. All right, I was able to get a little bit more of the crust there on this time, but as you can see, we still have quite a bit of crust left behind. Now, I don't know if that was the fault of me either not using like a pie dish, or if the little ridges down here caused any problem, or if I just didn't get my crust thin enough and fine enough to really hold together. But I did follow the recipe, so I did what I could. But of course, let's see how this actually tastes. Alright guys, so let's try out the Old Clock ice cream pie. So unfortunately, it did kind of fall apart a little bit. I feel like there's a few factors that could have been the reason for that. And also, since I was making this more of like a smaller size, I think that that could have also had an effect on it. So with there being so many unknown variables, I'm just gonna blame it on me for this one. We'll give it a pass as far as the recipe goes, since I did not make the full-on recipe. Alright, so let's just go ahead and taste it. That raspberry was very tart. So as far as the recipe goes, I feel like it was a very straightforward type of recipe. It didn't need a whole lot of ingredients, a lot of things you might even already have in your fridge or pantry. So I give it a plus for that. It was a very simple recipe, something that kids could easily help with as well. As far as the flavor of it, I feel like it's a really good, decent flavor. You know, you got chocolate and strawberries or chocolate and raspberries. I feel like that's a really nice combination together. If you call the one step that it didn't say to do that I decided to do on my own was to chop up the raspberries. And I think that was a good choice, and I wish they would have included that in the recipe, just because I feel like if you were to just bite into a cold frozen whole raspberry, it's almost a little bit too much for my teeth. So I definitely like that I was able to chop them up into like a smaller bit to really incorporate it into the ice cream. So as far as the first recipe goes, I think this is a pretty decent recipe. I did have some faults with mine, but I think that probably could be chalked up to user error. Would I ever make this again? I definitely think I would do this again sometime in the future. I would probably do it on the full scale, large size though, and maybe even use the blender next time for crunching up the Oreo cookies, because I feel like I did have a few little pieces that were a little bit of a bigger texture and they might not have bound together as well. And maybe even leaving it in the freezer longer would have helped the ice cream layer stick to the cookie layer better. So there's just a few things that I would have to try out again in the future, but I could definitely see myself doing this recipe again in the future. It's definitely not one I would say, no, I would never do this again. So as far as this recipe goes, if I were going to grade it, I think I would give this maybe like an A-. I do look forward to doing more recipes from this book in the future, so if you guys enjoyed this video, definitely let me know by leaving me a comment, liking the video, and if you made it this far into the video, let's do a little magnifying glass emoji for Nancy Drew, just to let me know that you made it this far. And also let me know, do you guys want me to try to do these like in order of the books, or do you want me to just do a random recipe so you never quite know what's coming next? I could see myself going either way. There's definitely a lot of interesting recipes in here. Some that sound like really good and phenomenal, and there are some that have me kind of questioning it. It's no secret that this was a 1970s cookbook and it's very of its time, so I can definitely see some of these recipes going a little off the rails, but let me know how you guys want me to proceed with this series. If you want me to do it in order, pick something random. We could draw something out of a hat and see what we come up with. There's just so many opportunities we can go with, and I feel like this would just be a fun little change up of videos on my channel, so definitely let me know what you guys think. So that is it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please like and subscribe. You can follow me on Instagram, link is below, and until my next video, I will talk to you guys later. Bye.